Hello, and I would like to talk about Windows Management Instrumentation, what it is, and why hackers love it. So, just a quick introduction of what WMI is, but kind of a motivation factor here of why to use WMI and like what is the point of learning this. And so, a little thought experiment is to talk about what if you could control almost everything on a Windows system remotely and stealthily because of software that is legitimately part of the operating system but has serious access vulnerabilities. So, Windows Management Instrumentation has its place, but it has potential of being a serious security vulnerability. So, what is Windows Management Instrumentation? Well, Microsoft says it is the infrastructure for management data and operations on Windows-based operating systems. So it provides a way to access management data and control functions on Windows machines. So it's like a remote control, but for the Windows operating system. And this is really where the vulnerability starts, is what can it do? It can do a lot. Scheduling persistence is probably this one right here is probably the most scheduling persistent and executing code without dropping files. These are bad. All of these are. This is why we need to, as security researchers, to make sure that we are understanding all the different vulnerabilities that can play into the system. So on Windows, with this Windows Management Instrumentation, this is huge. So it's a built-in attack platform, essentially. It isn't just for management, it's for total control. So it is for total control over a Windows system. Okay, access and control processes, services, files, network settings. I mean, this is a lot. This is a lot right here. This is where, there's the total control and all of the different access and control you can have with WMI. So, and it acts remotely, which makes it even more so malicious and possible vulnerability. So without needing any extra malware, so the footprint is much lower. So it blends in with legitimate system activity, so like living off the land binaries. But the bottom line here is it can turn into its own attack platform if misused. So, and the key word here is misuse. I mean, there is a utility to Windows Management Instrumentation, but it presents quite the attack surface for Windows machines. So why hackers love Windows Management Instrumentation? Well, it's built in. No extra malware is needed. It's stealthy, it's powerful, and it's flexible. And these four things are huge for an attacker. This is what an attacker is looking for. To be built in, to be stealthy, to be powerful, to have a lot of control, and to be flexible, being able to do recon and attacks. So there is a lot of depth and breadth to this attack surface. And so this just goes over an architecture. I pulled this from the Microsoft site. And so this just gives us a picture of providers and managed objects are here. This is the WMI infrastructure here with the core, and then the repository, and then the consumers here. So it continued, what attackers can do. Okay, so this is very key. Attackers can become the consumers using native Windows tools. So they can be, if we go back, so attackers can become the consumers. So they can become the scripts, interface with the scripting API. They can be a C++ client, and they manipulate WMI providers to execute payloads. So they're going to pretty much talk to the providers to get them to do things maliciously and create persistence, which I'll be going over a video on persistence later, because it's a very key concept in terms of cybersecurity and in terms of operating system security, or even web security. Persistence is a big topic. So moving on, abuse and normal management channels, right? So there's no obvious malware required with this because you're just using WMI. You're just interfacing with WMI and the infrastructure that is already there for you as the attacker. So providers and consumers, they talk to the Windows operating system, supply data, and execute operations. So think about Windows Defender, huge. I mean, that's bad from a vulnerability standpoint. But I mean, from a WMI, from a control standpoint, and from a worker standpoint, this is important. But from a vulnerability standpoint, this needs to be understood by security researchers. And then we have consumers. Those are the ones that the attackers can become, and they can request data or trigger actions through the WMI. So it can be scripts, apps, or attackers. So scripts, programs, malware, implants, right? So now we're just going to go over persistence, a very small introduction. I'll do a separate video on this later, but we need to know kind of the who, what, where, why, how of persistence. So it's pretty much attackers maintaining access, staying hidden inside, especially in the WMI, inside the event subscriptions, and because they want to be there long term to trigger payloads and to get access to data that maliciously. So it's just persistence is equal to long term, trying to be there long term, not having to initiate access over and over and over again. You persist. The attacker persists on the system. All right, so this is an example of it. So step one is create an event filter. So like detecting when a user logs in, the WMI knows about that, and then the attacker can use that maliciously. Link an event consumer, so like run that malicious script, bind them together, and then the attacker code runs automatically, and that's the key word here, automatically. Without files, without alerts. It's stealthy, right? It is stealthy. I can't write, but that is what it is, right? I can't write, but it is stealthy, right? And that's very valuable for an attacker. So WMI for persistence, attackers create the WMI event subscriptions. These trigger malicious actions, and then hidden persistence without traditional startup folders. So persistence happens. WMI for execution, launching payloads remotely, executing code in memory like fileless attacks, and blend in with the legitimate system management activities. And then for reconnaissance, querying system info, getting more data on your target, and learning more about the different pathways you can do to find more targets. There's a lot of damage that you can do in the reconnaissance element and gathering more data for your malicious attacks. Defending against WMI abuse, right? So how do we defend against it? Well, we're going to monitor, audit, and apply the principal of least privilege. So these are insurance policies to help us make sure that the WMI is not abused. Even though we talked about all the different vulnerabilities that it has, and it seems like it had just way too much access, there is a utility to it. And as security professionals, we just need to monitor the WMI activity with logging, audit the WMI event subscriptions regularly, right? It has to be pretty often, and just make sure you apply principal of least privilege. Restrict that access. Keep this problem from even starting. So a summary of why is it dangerous? Well, we talked about all four of these things, right? This is really the meat and potatoes of what is wrong with WMI. It can do a lot of great things, but there is a risk because of the access, the stealthy attacks that it can do, the persistence that it can achieve, and the overall damage it can do with execution, reconnaissance, and overall data theft. And so in the next video, I'll be talking about why offensive security skills are needed to be able to defend the web, and especially like paywalls, and that's where my research is in. So offensive security skills do come into play and being helpful to understand how to defend them. And then I'll also be talking about persistence. So thank you.